They called it a council chamber. To Ambassador Thys, it felt more like a mausoleum. The great circular hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices, low, anxious, carefully polite. Dozens of species sat behind polished stations of crystal and alloy, their bodies wildly different, their expressions painfully the same. Fear. Thys stood alone at the center of it all. Her legs trembled, though she forced herself to stay upright. Zelani blue skin was known for its soft glow. Hers looked washed out, almost gray, drained by sleepless weeks and too many funerals broadcast across too many shattered worlds. "My people are dying," she said. Her voice carried. The room quieted. For 3 months, the Corac Empire has been burning Zelani space. Cities older than some of your civilizations are ash. Our libraries, our gardens, our schools. She swallowed. Millions are dead. Millions more taken. Silence answered her. Not disbelief, not shock. Avoidance. The Voran ambassador, scaled, heavy-jawed, suddenly found his data pads fascinating. The Chittic representative clicked his mandibles too fast, antennae twitching. Others stared at the table, the ceiling, anywhere except her face. Thys felt it then. They already knew how this ended. "We can't fight them," she said, her voice cracking despite her effort. "We never built weapons. We never trained soldiers. We are artists, teachers, healers. The Corac are not conquering us." Her hands curled into fists. "They are erasing us." Council leader Zeeth finally spoke. Tall, gray, forearms folded in practiced diplomacy. "Ambassador Thys, understand your suffering, but the Corac Empire has already crushed 12 star systems. Their weapons outperform ours. Their warriors do not retreat. They do not negotiate." "Then what do you suggest? That I watch my children die quietly so the rest of you can sleep?" No one answered, because the truth was simple. Gentleness doesn't stop plasma fire. Slowly, hesitantly, the Chittic ambassador raised one thin arm. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. "There is one option," he said, voice like leaves scraping stone. Thys turned. "Say it." A pause, then the word that made several representatives physically recoil. Earth. The name hit the chamber like a toxin. Even Thys felt her breath catch. Earth. The death world. A world with crushing gravity, lethal weather, and an atmosphere so rich in oxygen it bordered on corrosive. A world where evolution didn't reward kindness, only adaptability, aggression, and refusal to quit. And somehow, one species had survived all of it. Humans. Everyone knew the stories. Apex predators wrapped in diplomacy, monsters that learned to smile, creatures who climbed their food chain by outthinking, outlasting, and outkilling everything else, then took that mindset into space. First contact was calm. Humans traded, followed the law, spoke politely in council sessions they rarely attended. Then the Draken pirates attacked a human colony. What followed rewrote military doctrine across the galaxy. Human warships appeared without warning, moving faster than physics said they should. They didn't issue challenges. They didn't demand surrender. They hunted. The Draken fleet ceased to exist in 48 hours. Survivors, few, spoke of enemies who fought dirty, adapted instantly, and kept coming even after taking fatal damage. Of tactics that felt less like warfare and more like being stalked. After that, no one bothered humans again. "They're monsters," Thys whispered. "Yes," the Voran ambassador said quietly, "and they're the only ones who can stop the Corac." Council leader Zeeth lifted a hand. "Ambassador Thys, understand what you would be asking. Humans do not fight with honor as we define it. They fight to win, completely." "What does that mean?" she asked.
The elderly Alaran representative answered, her voice thin with age and fear. "It means they will become worse than your enemy. They will do things that haunt history. And when the war ends, the galaxy will know who unleashed them." Thys looked around the chamber. Pity, fear, calculation, no hope. She thought of Zelani Prime, crystal towers grown over centuries, gardens where poetry was sung into existence, children learning to paint with light and sound. All of it burning. "I formally request aid from the human government," she said, standing straighter than she had in months. The chamber erupted. Some representatives stood and left outright. Others whispered prayers to gods that had never faced humans before. Council leader Zeeth nodded slowly. "The request will be sent immediately." Then quieter. "May mercy survive what comes next." The humans arrived 3 days later. Earth was 47 light-years away. No one asked how. Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the council chamber like she belonged there. Not tall, not imposing, just certain. Her uniform was immaculate, her dark hair pulled back simply. No armor, no theatrics, which somehow made it worse. Behind her came 3 others, a weapons specialist with scarred hands, an intelligence officer who smiled too easily, and a communications expert who barely blinked. They moved like predators pretending not to be. "Council Leader Zeeth," Chen nodded politely. "We received your message," as if crossing half the galaxy in days was routine. She turned to Thys, brown eyes, calm, focused. "Ambassador," Chen said softly, "tell me what happened." Thys spoke for 10 minutes. Chen didn't interrupt, didn't blink. When Thys finished, Chen asked one question. "Are they targeting civilians?" "Yes. Children, elderly, artists, anyone who couldn't be enslaved." Chen's expression changed, just slightly. The room felt colder. She looked at her team. Knuckles cracked, smiles vanished, eyes sharpened. "We'll handle this," Chen said. 4 words. No conditions, no demands, just a promise that sounded like a verdict. And for the first time since the Corac invasion began, Ambassador Thys felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Not relief, not hope, something closer to awe and fear for whoever stood in humanity's way.
The Galactic Council chamber didn't breathe again until the humans left. Only then did the voices return, panicked, urgent, uncertain. No one quite knew how to feel about what had just happened. Help had arrived. Real help. The kind that didn't ask for payment. That alone terrified them. Ambassador Thys stayed behind after the chamber emptied. Through the massive viewport, she watched the human fleet preparing to depart. They weren't beautiful ships, no glowing fins, no ceremonial hulls etched with symbols of honor. Just sleek, dark shapes built for speed, stealth, and killing efficiency. They slid into formation with predatory ease, like sharks aligning before a strike. "We'll handle this." The words echoed in her mind. The Cheetah ambassador had been right. The humans hadn't reacted with rage. Rage was loud, sloppy, emotional. What they shown was colder than that. Professional. As the last human ship vanished into hyperspace, Thys whispered a prayer for her people. Then, almost without meaning to, she whispered one for the Corac. The first sign something was wrong came 3 days later. A Corac supply convoy vanished en route to Sector 7. 16 armed cargo ships, veteran crews, standard escort pattern. Gone. General Krex stood in the bridge of the Bloodclaw, staring at an empty tactical display. His crimson eyes burned as he turned toward his communications officer. "Explain." "Sir, they entered hyperspace on schedule. No deviations, no hostile contacts detected." "And?" The officer hesitated, fingers flying across controls. "They never arrived. No distress signals, no debris. It's as if they were never there."
Corac slammed a fist into the console. The Corac Empire understood battle. They understood force, blood, and victory earned face to face. They did not understand disappearing. Send a search patrol. The patrol never returned. Then another outpost went silent. Then another. At first, each loss seemed isolated, a malfunction, bad luck, sabotage. But patterns don't lie. Within 2 weeks, the reports formed a picture that unsettled even hardened Corac commanders. Outposts offline, patrols missing, weapons depots suffering internal failures without explosions, shield grids collapsing seconds before unknown interference vanished. Someone was dismantling them, and no one could see how. Where are the humans? Officers demanded. Where were the fleets, the battles, the glorious clashes of empires? Instead, there was only quiet and the feeling of being watched. Commander Vash paced the bridge of his cruiser, claws clicking against the deck. His ship was a masterpiece, thick armor, city-killing cannons, elite crew, all useless against nothing. Distress signal, his sensor officer said suddenly. Outpost Gamma 7. On screen. Static cleared to reveal chaos. "This is Gamma 7, the voice panted. "They're here. They didn't trip alarms. Shields are down. Weapons are—" The feed cut. "Set course," Vash ordered. "Full speed." They arrived to find Gamma 7 intact. No scorch marks, no hull breaches. Just darkness. The outpost floated like a corpse. Boarding teams found the crew alive, unconscious, scattered where they'd fallen. No injuries, no signs of struggle. Every system wiped, every weapon disabled. Perfectly. In the command center, written in flawless Corac script, were 7 words. "Stop killing innocents. This is your only warning." Vash felt his blood run cold. As his ship retreated into hyperspace, sensors flickered. For a fraction of a second, another vessel appeared on the display. Human, so close it could have touched their hull. It had been there the entire time. Fear spread faster than any fleet. Corac warriors were bred for direct combat, raised on honor stories and glorious deaths. Now they flinched at empty corridors, jumped at sensor ghosts, slept poorly, if at all. General Krex convened an emergency command council. Hardened officers stared back at him through holograms, confidence stripped away. 17 outposts dark, 4 convoys gone, 3 patrol fleets missing. No human fleet engagements, another added. No declarations, no challenges. "They strike, cripple, and vanish," a captain said hoarsely. "Like they know us." Krex snarled. No one echoed him. That night, his flagship went dead. Every system crashed at once. Engines offline, life support flickering. For 3 hours, the most powerful warship in the Empire drifted helplessly. When systems rebooted, a data packet waited. Complete intelligence, every operation, every secret, every weakness, and a message. "We know where you are. We know what you've done. Stop the genocide, or we will stop you." Krex stared at it longer than his officers began shouting. For the first time in his life, he understood the truth. This wasn't war. This was a hunt, and the humans had already decided the outcome. Somewhere in the dark between stars, they moved, silent, patient, inevitable. Not conquering, correcting. And the Corac Empire, built on fear and blood, was learning what it felt like to be prey.
Captain Grix had prepared himself to die screaming. That was what humans did to their enemies. Everyone knew that. The interrogation chamber aboard the human vessel shattered every expectation he had. No restraints, no pain, just a metal table, 2 chairs, clean white lighting, and a young human woman who spoke perfect Corac. "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Park," she said, sliding a cup of water across the table. "I have a few questions about your unit's actions on Zelani Prime." Grix laughed, though it came out brittle. "I will tell you nothing, monster." Park nodded, like she'd heard it before. "That's your right." She placed a small device on the table and activated it. The air filled with a hologram, Zelani Prime, or what was left of it. Burned districts, cratered gardens, collapsed towers that had once sung with light. "This footage is from yesterday," Park said, quietly. The image zoomed. A school, reduced to rubble. A medical center, flattened. A nursery, ash. "Standard targets," Grix said, but his voice faltered. Park changed the feed. Bodies appeared. Blue-skinned civilians frozen mid-run. Children crushed beneath fallen walls. Elders curled around the young in final instinctive protection. 17,000 civilians, one afternoon. Grix felt something twist in his chest. "This is war," he muttered. Park's eyes hardened, not with rage, but with something colder. "The Zelani don't have weapons. Their idea of resistance is poetry." She tapped the device again. This time, a Corac military orders appeared, bearing Grix's own authorization codes. Civilian centers, cultural sites, morale suppression. "You signed these." Silence. For the next hour, she showed him everything. Slave markets, processing centers, mass graves. Not conquest, erasure. "Why?" Grix whispered. "Because you need to understand," Park replied evenly. "We're not here for territory or resources." She leaned forward. "We're here because your empire is a disease, and we're the treatment." Across Zelani space, something impossible was happening. Human soldiers, those same ghosts who had dismantled the Corac war machine, were kneeling in rubble, pulling survivors from collapsed homes. A human medic crouched beside a Zelani child, hands gentle as he cleaned her wounds. "You're safe," he said softly in broken Zelani. The child stared at him, trembling. "My parents." The medic's face tightened. "I'm sorry." Nearby, engineers restored power. Cooks studied alien biology to prepare safe meals. Soldiers carried elders with patience that bordered on reverence. They fought like monsters. They protected like guardians. Ambassador Thys watched humans recover fragments of her people's burned library, each piece handled like sacred glass. "Why?" Ambassador Chen asked. "Because it matters," Chen replied. "They tried to kill your memory. We don't allow that." The surrender broadcast hit every Corac world at once. Not a demand, a mirror. Images of slave pens, graves, executions, and one line: "This ends now." Within hours, Corac's systems surrendered, not out of fear of human weapons, but shame. General Krex transmitted his final message: unconditional surrender. The reply was immediate: accepted. Your people will be treated with dignity. A pause. The same dignity you denied others. At the victory ceremony, Ambassador Thys offered worlds, wealth, influence. Admiral Chen refused all of it. "We came because someone needed help. That's enough." And a Lauren elder asked the question that hung over the galaxy: "Were we wrong to call you monsters?" Chen smiled, sharp, calm. "No, you just misunderstood the kind." She looked out at them all. "We hunt monsters." Months later, pirates fled at 3 words. Slavers panicked. Tyrants hesitated. "Call the humans." And as Admiral Chen's ship turned toward another distress signal, she smiled. The galaxy was safer, not because monsters didn't exist, but because the right ones were watching. The Corac Empire didn't fall in flames. It collapsed in silence. That was the part historians struggled with later. There were no final stand battles, no heroic last charges, no climactic fleet engagement where banners burned and legends were born. Just systems going dark, one by one. General Krex watched it happen from a reinforced command bunker buried deep beneath Corac Prime's capital city. Walls of stone and alloy that had never been breached, shields layered atop shields, defenses designed to survive planetary bombardment. None of it mattered. Reports kept arriving, shorter each time. Fleet Command, offline. Weapons Directorate, compromised. Orbital shipyards, disabled. Communications grid, hijacked. Every time his officers tried to reroute, human countermeasures were already there, anticipating, adapting, learning. How? Krex demanded, for the 100th time. No one answered, because the truth was worse than ignorance. They were being outthought. The Corac-Alived war was decided by strength, bigger cannons, stronger armor, fiercer warriors. Humans had reduced war to a systems problem. Identify threats, isolate nodes, neutralize capability. No hatred, no pride, just execution. On the far edge of Corac territory, Admiral Thane stood aboard a crippled cruiser, watching human drones dismantle his ship piece by piece. They ignored him completely. No taunts, no threats. He realized then that the humans didn't hate them. Hate would have been comforting. Hate would have meant this was personal. It wasn't. They were just fixing something. On Zelani Prime, the skies were clear for the first time in months. No bombardments, no alarms. Ambassador Thys walked through the ruins of a district that had once been a cultural center. Human engineers moved quietly around her, erecting supports, stabilizing damaged structures. A human soldier stood guard nearby, weapons slung low, posture relaxed but alert. He nodded respectfully as she passed. They didn't treat her like a client. They treated her like someone worth protecting. Admiral Chen joined her near a shattered monument. "The Corac leadership has surrendered," Chen said. "The remaining forces are standing down." Thys closed her eyes. It was over. "How many did you lose?" she asked. Chen didn't answer immediately. "Enough," she said finally. Thys studied her face. "You don't regret it." "No," Chen replied. "I regret that we were late." Back on Corac Prime, the final transmission went out. General Krex stood before a camera, his posture rigid, his eyes hollow. "To all Corac systems, lay down your weapons. This war is finished." Behind the camera, human observers watched without expression. When the feed ended, Krex turned toward Admiral Chen, who appeared via hologram. "You could destroy us," he said. "Why haven't you?" Chen met his gaze. "Because destroying you wouldn't fix the problem. Stopping you does." She leaned closer. "And because living with what you've done is punishment enough." Krex said nothing. He had no answer for that. The galaxy watched the aftermath with stunned disbelief. Human fleets didn't claim territory, didn't seize resources, didn't install puppet governments. They withdrew, leaving behind medics, engineers, teachers. On liberated worlds, human flags never flew. Only relief tents, only rebuilt homes, only children who slept without fear. At a quiet memorial on Zelani Prime, Thys stood among human soldiers as names were read, Zelani and human alike. When it ended, she turned to Chen. "They will remember this," she said. "All of them." Chen nodded. "Good." "Doesn't that worry you?" Thys asked. Chen smiled faintly. "No." She looked up at the stars. "It keeps monsters honest." And across the galaxy, a new understanding settled in. Power didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrived quietly. Sometimes it left just as quietly. And sometimes, if you paid attention, you realized the most terrifying thing of all. The monsters weren't angry. They were calm. And they were paying attention. The galaxy expected conquest. What it got was reconstruction. Human warships withdrew from Corac space in disciplined waves, slipping back into the dark as quietly as they had arrived. But they didn't leave emptiness behind. They left people. Doctors, engineers, logistics crews, teachers, cultural specialists. Men and women who carried no weapons heavier than necessity and treated devastated worlds like fragile things worth saving. On Zelani Prime, the sound of plasma fire was replaced by hammers and low conversation. Temporary shelters rose beside shattered crystal towers. Power grids hummed back to life. Water ran clean again. Human medics worked without pause. They learned Zelani biology in days, adjusted treatments, modified equipment. When they made mistakes, they admitted them and corrected them faster. A Zelani elder once asked a human surgeon why he worked so long without rest. The human answered simply, "Because you're still hurting." That answer spread faster than any speech. In the ruins of the Grand Archive, Ambassador Thiss watched human technicians recover fragments of burned art. Each piece was catalogued, stabilized, treated like a priceless relic. "Most of this can't be saved," Thiss said quietly. One of the technicians shook her head. "Some of it can. That's enough." Nearby, a human engineer carefully reconstructed a damaged sculpture, a Zelani family entwined in light and form. His hands were steady, reverent. Admiral Chen arrived just as the final support struts were set. "We found more pieces in the lower vaults. It'll take time," the engineer said. "Take it, make it right." Chen replied simply, "You planned the fall of an empire, and now you're worried about a statue." Thiss said quietly, "That statue is why we did it." Chen didn't look away from the sculpture. Across former Corac territory, human presence was minimal but deliberate. No occupation forces, no banners, just oversight. Human observers ensured surrendered Corac forces were disarmed, not humiliated. Prisoners were fed, medical care was provided. Abuse was not tolerated by anyone. Some Corac warriors resisted at first until they realized something worse was happening. They were being treated as people, and that forced them to confront what they had done. In one temporary school, Zelani children sat across from human volunteers, learning Galactic Common alongside math and art. A small group of orphans approached a resting squad of human soldiers, clutching handmade drawings. Stick figures, bright suns, humans and Zelani standing together. 2 words written carefully beneath each picture. "Thank you." The soldiers, veterans who dismantled fleets without blinking, sat among the rubble and cried openly. No one mocked them. Elsewhere, the galaxy struggled to adjust. Diplomats reread human treaties, searching for hidden clauses that weren't there. Military analysts rewrote doctrines from scratch. Historians argued about what to call the conflict. It wasn't a war. Wars were contests. This had been an intervention. Ambassador Thiss stood before the Galactic Council once more. Her posture was different now, straighter, steadier. "My people will survive because someone chose to protect us." Eyes turned towards the human delegation. They sat quietly, no smiles, no pride, just presence. Council leader Zith spoke carefully. "Humanity has altered the balance of power." Chen inclined her head. "We didn't create it, we revealed it." "And if another empire rises?" the Chittick ambassador asked softly. Chen's voice didn't change. "Then we'll respond the same way." Far from the council halls, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching trade lanes reopen. "Status?" she asked. "Pirate activity down 80%, slaver networks collapsing." Chen nodded. Not satisfied, just vigilant. The galaxy was learning a lesson humanity had learned long ago. The most dangerous monsters weren't the ones who raged. They were the ones who rebuilt and stayed.
The surrender of the Corac Empire didn't end arguments. It started new ones. Across the Galactic Council, debates flared behind closed doors. Military analysts warned that humanity now stood uncontested. Economists calculated the cost of a war Earth had paid for and walked away from. Philosophers asked questions no one liked answering. What do you call a power that can conquer, but doesn't? Ambassador Thys watched these discussions with quiet distance. Her people were rebuilding. That is what mattered. Still, even she felt the shift. When humans entered a room, conversations softened. Not from fear exactly, but from awareness. The galaxy now knew the line. The official accounting came weeks later. Human losses were not broadcast publicly. There were no speeches, no memorials unveiled across alien worlds. But in a quiet memorial on Earth, names were etched into stone. Soldiers, engineers, medics. Not heroes, just people who hadn't come home. Admiral Chen stood there long after the others left, hands folded behind her back. "You did everything right," a civilian official said carefully. Chen didn't respond. Right didn't bring them back. On Corac Prime, the former conquerors faced something unfamiliar: accountability. Human investigators presented evidence to independent tribunals. Crimes were documented, orders traced, responsibility assigned. There were no mass executions, no spectacle, just judgment. Some Corac leaders screamed, others broke, a few accepted it in silence. The galaxy watched closely. This was justice without vengeance, and it scared them more than brutality ever had. The Galactic Council convened a final session on the matter of humanity. Ambassador Thys addressed Chen directly. "You have proven your strength beyond question. You could demand a permanent seat, veto power, oversight authority." Chen shook her head. "We don't want to rule." "Then what do you want?" Thys asked. Chen looked around the chamber. "We want you to handle your problems. We'll only step in if you don't." A murmur rippled through the hall. That was worse than domination. That was expectation. Later, alone with Thys, Chen spoke more candidly. "Power always costs something," she said. "If you pretend it doesn't, you end up like the Corac." Thys nodded. "And humanity?" Chen exhaled. "We pay the price up front." In the months that followed, the galaxy adjusted. Pirate clans disbanded overnight, slaver routes dried up, border wars cooled into negotiations. Not because humans were everywhere, but because everyone knew they could be. 3 words entered common use, spoken in fear, hope, or desperation. "Call the humans." On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Chen received another alert. "Distress signal," her officer said. "Refugee convoy under attack." Chen didn't hesitate. "Set course, full speed." As the ship turned, stars stretching into light, Chen allowed herself a small, tired smile. Power wasn't about domination. It was about choosing every time to stand between the innocent and the darkness, and paying whatever it cost.
The galaxy never forgot what happened to the Corac Empire. Not because it was loud, but because it was quiet. Empires usually die screaming, fleets colliding, capitals burning, history ending in fire. The Coracs simply stopped. Their war machine unraveled. Their ideology collapsed under its own reflection. What remained was forced to live with what it had done. That was the part that lingered. Years later, children across a dozen species studied the event under different names. The Silent War, the Human Intervention, the Correction. Humans never named it at all. Trade routes once haunted by pirates grew safe again. Refugee convoys traveled without escorts. Border disputes ended at negotiating tables instead of battle lines. And whenever something dark stirred, whenever slavers resurfaced or tyrants tested their limits, someone always said it. Quietly, carefully. "Call the humans."
Sometimes they came in force. Sometimes they came with diplomats. Sometimes all they needed to do was answer. Ambassador Thys stood on the rebuilt balcony of the Zelani Grand Archive, sunlight refracting through restored crystal spires. Children's voices echoed through halls once reduced to ash. Her people were not the same. They were stronger, not because they had learned to kill, but because they had learned they were worth protecting. A message arrived on her console. From Admiral Sarah Chen. Subject, trade convoy passing through your sector. All clear. Thys smiled and sent her reply. Thank you. Always. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Chen watched peaceful traffic drift across the stars. No alarms, no battles, just the quiet work of keeping things that way. Ma'am, her communications officer said, long-range signal from the Riel sector, slavers probing refugee lanes. Chen didn't sigh, didn't smile. She nodded. Plot intercept. The ship turned smoothly, purposefully. Somewhere a slaver captain felt something he couldn't explain, a sense that he had gone too far, that the dark had noticed him. Chen stood alone at the viewport as stars stretched into motion. The galaxy still called humans monsters. She didn't correct them. Monsters were real, but some monsters learned restraint. Some chose rules. Some stood watch so others didn't have to. As her ship vanished into hyperspace, Admiral Chen spoke softly, more reminder than vow. Not today. And somewhere out there, the innocent slept a little easier, because the right kind of monsters were still awake.